But let's talk about City, and as Phil said in that piece there, ending that 5-match losing run, but not, Damien, in the way that they would have wanted it. Certainly not when they were 3-0 up at home to Feyenoord.
Amazing. And Feyenoord didn't have to work for it. That's the thing that would worry you most. It was the Garvidal mistake with the back pass, put Ederson in an awful position, and then somehow a quite basic free kick to the back post somehow found its way back across goal and was tapped in. And then obviously Ederson, Rico Lewis drops in. It's a calamitous collapse from Manchester City, which.
But in keeping from what we would have seen, but certainly what we saw at the weekend in the Spurs match, in terms of how vulnerable they can be at the back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once the first thing goes wrong, the wheels seem to come off very, very quickly. So Pep Guardiola needs to pinpoint that, needs to figure out why his team was so low on confidence, because normally with 3-0 lead, they're imperious, right? They just see it out. They pass you to them, they retain possession, and they don't give you a sniff. But for them to collapse in that manner, again, more questions than answers, as Phil said.
Probably the only manager in the world who could go five defeats in a row or 6 matches without a win, and nobody's talking about him getting the sack, to be fair. But what do you think, Brian? I mean, what's at the root of this? Is it just about injuries or fatigue or things that can be fixed?
I'd say it's a combination of factors. I think the fact that Rodri's obviously a major one, but then Kovacic, who was his cover, not as good at the job, not as quick getting around the pitch or spotting danger, but a good player, he's missing. Diaz was back tonight on the bench, but didn't bring him on, so he must be injured too. Few other players have had injuries. Grealish in and out. Grealish got in tonight. Almost rescued it for them late on. Had a shot that it come out deflected and come off the bar. But I think it's a combination of some key players being injured, and also the fact that some of the players are ageing, and De Bruyne hasn't been fit enough. He was brought on again tonight. He's played.
And their recruitment hasn't addressed that properly, maybe?
And they saw Alvarez that we saw tonight. You know, they got agreed. I think we're all agreed that they got an awful lot of money for him, and it might have been worth it to sell him. But they haven't necessarily replaced him with someone reliable if Haaland isn't scoring the goals. So they're relying on Haaland to score the goals. Foden's form has dropped significantly, given he was the player of the year in the Premier League last year. And yes, you talk about the recruitment. Even Alisson is not. He's not the world's #1 goalkeeper in his current form either. Ederson rather than Alisson. Yeah, Ederson, 2 Brazilian goalkeepers. Ake's not playing particularly well. Akanji doesn't look like the player he's been the last couple of seasons. They depend on Rico Lewis. Walker has lost legs, didn't start tonight. Gundogan not getting around the pitch. It was a bit of a strange one to bring Gundogan back after they let him out.
A lot of these little things seem to be adding up, Damien. I don't know if it's... I mean, does the manager bear some culpability in the sense that, you know, for example, I mean, Walker got a bit of stick for the last goal at the weekend. For Werner had him for pace, but is it the way that he's setting the team up in the face of all these injuries and vulnerabilities and the ageing factor? Does he not need to sort of rethink things a bit, or is he just saying this is the way I always set teams up and got to go?
They have had a period of dominance over the last 6 years. 5 Premier Leagues out of 6. So the squad is perhaps coming to an end. That cycle of players, they haven't recruited particularly well. Obviously the charges hanging over their head, so maybe they're hamstrung a little bit in terms of what they can spend. That's why Alvarez was sold.
They're trying to sort of second guess what's going to happen with that.
But I think that Pep probably would have expected or thought that this year might be a transitional year. They might not, you know, they might win the league, but if someone does really well, they'll struggle to get to the 100 points that they always have done. You know, for him to maintain the level of success that he has over the last 5 years, 5 out of 6 is incredible, and the Champions League. So I think this year is just a spin around. I don't think he expected it to be this poor, but Bernardo Silva, very, very... All the things Brian listed there is correct. Bernardo Silva as well as one of them. Been on the treadmill for a long time now, and perhaps De Bruyne, you know, there was talk of him leaving in the summer, maybe going to Saudi Arabia. Maybe his goose is cooked as well. So there's probably 2 or 3 players there, and the ones that have come in haven't maybe done as well as what they should have done.
And he's always liked to work with a smaller squad as well, and now that's catching up on him a little bit with the injuries and the lack of options in the rest of the squad, and the young players are not good enough yet to continue the dominance they've had.
He signed his 2-year contract, so I think he's aware of all these problems, and they're aware of the players they need to move on in January, Kyle Walker being one of them. Maybe it's time for 4 or 5 of them to go, and this club will be ruthless enough to move them on. They will not hang around. Pep Guardiola will not. You know, even though these players have been brilliant and exceptionally brilliant for the club, he will not let memories or nostalgia get in the way. These players will be ruthlessly moved on the next 6 months.
So will be a regeneration.
Absolutely. And next year, then there'll be a whole host of players come in or promoted from the youth system. So injuries will get right again. So listen, I'm sure Pep is aware of what his problems are.
And the contract thing was interesting timing in the middle of it, wasn't it? It's almost like saying, right, I'm going to stay here and sort these things out.
Yeah, well, he's been an intriguing character over the years, taking the break after the Bayern Munich one. And now it looks like he's kind of, that he foresaw this happening, and he's almost wants to say, you all think I'm done now, and that we're going to struggle again. But I'll show you. That's what I'm kind of getting from him. He came out fighting in the pre-match press conference yesterday, saying, "Well, you've all been very critical now, but the way I've done it over the years has been good enough, and I'll be good enough to do it again."
Maybe he's energised in some way.
I don't think we should doubt him.
Yeah, maybe he wants to win the conference. I'm going to go down there.
Ah, no.
That's a joke.
Ah, no.
That's a joke.